Three, two, one. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another History Live interview. Tonight, I have a very, very special guest for you all. She is a very dear friend of mine. She is an Egyptologist and a photographer, and she is also a specialist in spiritualism. Her name is Auset Rohn. So, hi, Auset.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you doing?
I am thrilled to be here.
Oh, well, I am thrilled to have you on finally to let people know you a bit better. They've seen you in the interviews, but now we're going to hear from you.
Yes, I appreciate that so much. I enjoy putting together all the videos with you and for people that are on my YouTube channel. So it's nice to be here and do something extra special, extra special.
Exactly. So, Osset, you have a very interesting name and a very interesting tale about how you came to have that name. Would you mind sharing?
Yes. So usually when I do promotional material and things like that, I always use all of the names. Amy Auset Rohn. Amy is my given name at birth. And um, I've been doing readings and spiritual work for many years, probably about 15 years at this point. And early on, you would go to these retreats, like either yoga retreats or something like that, and you would meet people and they would introduce themselves as, my name is, Stardust, or my, my name is Sunflower. And you don't think anything about it. You don't ask them like, no, that's not your real name. What's your real name? You just call them Sunflower because that makes them happy.
Exactly.
And
it's like being in an episode of Grace and Frankie.
yes. Yes. And so, I had a good friend and she, kind of got a spiritual name and that sort of thing. And I was like, I'm never going to do that. Well, as soon as you say you're never going to do something, you better watch out. And so in my world, I spend a lot of time communing with the Neteru, thinking about them, asking them for insight or guidance on a question that I have or a problem that I'm having, or I'm thinking about their stories and looking for like the deeper wisdom that's hidden within them. And I remember being in my kitchen washing the dishes, and Isis kind of pulls up a chair, she sits down, and she just simply says, "You're going to get a new name." And I was like, "Oh," and then she disappeared. And she kept doing that for like about 2 weeks. She would pop in and just say, "You're going to get a new name." And finally I was like, do I Google one, or do I have to meditate to get one? Do I pick one myself? How is this going to happen? And she would never tell me. And then one night I was almost asleep, and it's in that moment of, waking up and going to sleep that you begin to enter the astral realm within your consciousness. And she comes to my bedside and she says, "You're going to get a new name." And I was like, "Okay." And she said, "I give you my name. I give you Auset." And I was like, hello, no. You are the goddess of 10,000 names, and anybody who's anybody in the Egyptian, history world or spirituality and Kemeticism, they're going to be like, who does this woman think she is, taking on this name of Isis? And she said to me, she said, "No." She said, "You have lived as I have lived. You have experienced life as I have experienced life." And she said, "I give you my name." And so I said, "Okay." And then I asked her, I said, "Well, am I going to be like Oprah or Ellen and just have one name?" And she was like, "No, you use this as your middle name." So I did. And then in my spiritual work, I go by Auset, and like with my family and things like that, I go by Amy. But I've been going by Auset for so long that sometimes it sounds because of the hard A sound in Amy, it feels different. The resonance of that feels very different.
Yeah. Because I remember the first time we met and you were telling me about the name and you said to me, "Oh, I don't want to get too woo-woo on you." I was like, "No, get as woo-woo as you want to."
Yes, I don't get as far out into the woo-woo-ness as some of my friends, but I have 5 planets in Libra, so I tend to be, I think that helps to keep me on a seeking the space of equilibrium in all things. Don't get too far one way, don't get too far the other, try to find a blend of
Yeah.
everything. And I think that's why I really enjoyed working with you so much, because you do so much with the history of Egypt, and that's something that I've been trying to learn more about and educate myself on, so that I have a broader base and a larger knowledge and understanding of the spiritual practices as well, pulling in a lot of the history, and it's been a lot of fun.
Because ancient Egypt is very much, it is historical, but it is very much based on their religion and the spiritualism that they practiced every day. So that makes, total sense. So where do you think that your fascination with ancient Egypt came from?
Well, I grew up very religious, and we had these, like since we study Egypt, we have all the dictionaries and all of these sorts of things, the encyclopedias of whatever, and you have that also in Christianity and religion. And so we had a concordance, and within that, it kind of went through each of the books of the Bible, and there were pictures of like the locations in Israel or things like that, and maps. I love maps. But then the book of Exodus, which is all about the Israelites being in Egypt, and Moses coming and doing all of his magic and that sort of thing. And there were photos in there of the pyramids and the mummies and the gold statues, and I was always very intrigued with that. But because of my upbringing, I was not able to kind of dive into any of that. And so then when I grew up, I started kind of opening up to what else is out there besides, my organized religion that I grew up in. And I came across John Edward. He's the psychic medium, and he was doing this show called Crossing Over. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then my daughter had a friend over to play when she was in kindergarten, and I was talking to his mom, and I was like, so what do you do? And she said, well, I teach meditation and this and that. And I was like, oh, I jumped up and down, and I said, I want to come. And so I went to, it was a channeling class where you would like go into meditation, and you would hear or receive messages from divine beings, and speak them out loud and amaze all of the people in the room, basically. And I had been working with an archangel, because that was kind of an easy place for me to go with my religious background, and I was expecting to connect with an archangel. But in the meditation, we went across this bridge, and we waited for the being to come, and a being came, and she said, when I asked for her name, she said, I am Hathor. And I had never heard of Hathor before, so I was like, no, you have to go away. And I did that to her 3 times, and finally I was like, okay, you're Hathor. And I just was consumed, I guess, by this energy. My heart was just pounding so hard, and my throat was like, I could just feel everything was just opening up, and I couldn't catch my breath. And I came out of the meditation with the teacher, and I said, what's a Hathor? And so then I began to learn more about ancient Egypt and Hathor in particular, and kind of started my journey there. So I feel like Hathor literally called me into this way of life that I've been able to create.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting that you talk about that there is a lot of Egyptian stories in the Bible, and that does inspire a lot of people to actually go to Egypt and become interested in the history of Egypt. So that's very interesting that you had it from sort of that side. That's what sort of first sparked that interest.
Yeah, it is. And there's so much references within the Bible that go back to ancient Egypt. So
Yes.
it's been really fun to be like, oh, there's that,
The similarities.
Yeah. And even the simple thing of, at the end of a prayer, we would all say, Amen. And it's like, oh, that's the God we're saying, we're invoking the ancient Egyptian god Amun, by
The
saying
hidden one,
Amen
yeah,
at the end, yeah, of our prayers.
exactly, exactly.
Who
So
knew, right?
exactly, until I started studying Egyptology, when I first heard of the name, Amun, Amen, I was like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you
Yeah.
you often take people on tours to Egypt. What has been one of the best and one of the worst questions you've been asked by travelers there?
You sent me the list of questions, and I've been thinking about this one. Has perplexed me so much because I don't really remember, nothing really stands out to me as far as something that someone has asked about anything. So
Mhm.
I always welcome all questions. And a lot of times, even if I don't know the answer to something, to me, that's quite a challenge because then that means I get to go research and I get to learn more about something or a new perspective on things. So I always enjoy hearing everybody's questions.
Exactly, because even if you get a stupid question, you get that opportunity then to help that person with the right answer.
Yeah, or just at least to open their eyes to new possibilities. And I
Mhm.
understand, the way that people are raised, it affects how they see the world. And just because, I was raised with, blinders on, basically, like this is the way that things are and there's no other way. And
Yeah.
then, diving into the spiritualist side of the belief system, it's like, wow, seeing how everything is so connected.
Mhm.
It just really opened up the possibilities for magic and opportunity. And so it's been really good to have that perspective. So it's, like I said, I like to have all questions and, hear about what people think and believe, and remembering that that's their path,
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Mhm.
Well, if
Yeah.
you could suggest one place that is a must see in Egypt, where is it?
I love Abydos. So it's a little out of the way and that sort of thing, but there's so much history there. It's such a fascinating temple because it's very different in its layout from everything. And so I really enjoy, I would say, be sure
Yeah,
you go to Abydos, take the time to do that.
exactly. I still need to get there.
We will go. We will go. We're going to have so much fun when we get there.
I know we've been talking about it so much about what we're going to do at Abydos. So
And you and I have such a fun Abydos kind of connection.
yeah, yeah, we will get to our Abydos connection in a little bit, but for now, I want to still start it. I want to still know about the beginning. So,
Okay.
when was your first visit to Egypt?
My first visit to Egypt was in 2016. And I went on a tour with my dear friend. She's now my business partner in my tour company, Normandy Ellis. She's an author of 14, 15 books at this point, and she's an amazing lady. It took her 10 years, but she translated the Book of the Dead, and it's in her book Awakening Osiris, and it's a beautiful, beautiful rendition of that. And so I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to visit Egypt with her. And then I went again with her, and she was writing her current book, which is Hieroglyphic Words of Power, and it's using the hieroglyphs as symbols, as an oracle, basically, as something that you can find a message in. And so we went through the temples and kind of a Where's Waldo with the hieroglyphs, and I took photos of the various ones that she was writing about, and then created a deck of oracle cards that go along with the book. So
Oh,
Egypt has
wow.
been a very fun place for me to visit and explore and learn.
Yeah,
So it started in 2016.
2016, 1 year before me. Wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went to 2017 for the first time. So,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
yeah. So I think I know what your answer is going to be, but which place in Egypt did you feel a spiritual connection to the first time you visited, or when you visited?
Abydos.
Mhm, mhm.
I remember going into Seti's chapel and just, um, and even thinking about it now, it's almost overwhelming, um, emotionally, the seeing the reliefs of him. And I went ahead when I was at the Cairo Museum, I paid the ticket to go to the mummy room and to look at his face. And he's very special to me.
Yeah, yeah. He's one of the most beautiful, probably the most beautiful male mummy that there is, actually. Yeah,
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 yeah. And I just try to always, imagine him in real life.
yeah, yeah. I had that same connection when I saw Ramsey's mummy. So, you know,
Yeah,
you like the father, I like the son.
I know. I know. It's really incredible.
Yeah. Well, we are actually both obsessed with Om Seti. So, what is it about Om Seti that interested you?
So this is another like magic moment in my life where it was something that I didn't know anything about. And I was working on becoming a priestess of Isis. I was doing a training program where we do, rituals, and we do like the ancient practices of Egypt, where every morning you get up, you do your purification ritual, you prepare offerings, you awaken the goddess in her shrine, you say prayers to her, and those types of things. And during one ritual, I was going to be chanting. And so it was part of the ritual of receiving a divine name from Isis for your ordination. So my ordination name is not Auset, it's something else that I have. And you were going to, during your ordination or this meditation, you would receive a name for ordination from Isis. And one of the names that I was really drawn to was Ventrishi. And the reason was because it was, the meaning of it is harp of joy. And I was like, well, I play the harp, so maybe that will be it, but I'm not going to decide because I want to wait till the meditation. So in the days leading up to the meditation, there was like preparation days and all that. So this day I was supposed to be chanting, and I was like, what am I going to chant today? And so I thought, well, I'll just keep it simple and I'll chant Om. So I'm sitting there, in my house, in front of the fireplace, in the middle of Indiana, in the cornfields, and I'm chanting Om. And all of a sudden, it was kind of the same feeling when Hathor came to me. And all of a sudden, I just started to feel this presence, and it changed my chant. And instead of just chanting Om, I started chanting Om Seti, Om Seti, Om Seti. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. It was so strong, and I was like shaking and all of this sort of thing. And so I came out of the meditation and, I was trying to process it. And so I just went to Google. I'm like, I don't know, like, how do you spell this? And I came across the stories of a woman named Om Seti. And I was just like, so glad I was sitting in a chair. Um, and the thing about her was that her beliefs and her experiences in a past life with Seti the First was as a priestess, and her name as that priestess was Ventrishi. And so I was just, and I have goosebumps now. It's
Yeah.
just like, I don't, I don't feel like, and some people would ask, I guess this would be an interesting question that people have asked, is like, do you feel like you're a reincarnation of Om Seti or something? And it's like, well, no, because I was like 14, when she passed away. So I don't think so. But in my understanding of like past lives and that sort of thing, I would say we're part of the same soul family. And that perhaps there's a part of my soul that's a part of Om Seti, that's a part of Ventrishi, and so that's where that soul recognition came from, and why in the middle of cornfields, never having been to Egypt, I would be chanting the name of Om Seti. So that's where my fascination became with her.
Yeah, yeah, because she has a very interesting story. If anybody doesn't know about Om Seti, go and check it out. Um, But yeah, like you said, it would be difficult to say that you're a reincarnation of her because she was still alive when you were a child. So, you know, that's not really how reincarnation works. But do you believe in reincarnation?
Oh, yes. Yes, and I believe that the ancient Egyptians did as well.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. Well, I mean, we have the example of, you know, that the pharaoh is meant to be the reincarnation of the reborn Horus. So, you know, they do have that similar thread.
yeah, yeah, and there are, I can't think of them right now, but I know I've read in some of the coffin texts, there are some references that, and even in the pyramid texts where, you know, there are references to being reborn again. So,
Exactly, exactly. Even if
mhm,
you're not reborn here, they believe you can be reborn in another world, you know. So
right,
that was the
right,
aim, was to be reborn. Because if you're not reborn, you're kind of
right.
screwed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Or you've ascended and you've done all your lessons, and so you don't need to be reborn anymore.
exactly, exactly. So, you know, you also mentioned that you play the harp, and I know you also play other instruments. You've lent your harp playing skills to a couple of my documentaries in the past. So you've just done the Pompeii documentary. You played the harp for the Hymn to Isis sections. But would you say that your interest from playing the harp came from Egyptology, or was that there before?
It was there before, and so, well, it was in there in the midst of it, but it wasn't necessarily right away connected to Egypt. The way that my harp music connected me to Egypt was, if you know recall, Hathor was the goddess who kind of called me, and she's the goddess of music. Like that's one of
Mhm.
her main areas of interest is music, and so she's also very much connected to the sky. She's kind of she's the body of the sky,
Yeah.
and so is the goddess Nut. And it was during I had played the harp for about a year, and I was just practicing my scales or something, fingering exercises, and it was one of those times where another magical experience where the goddess Nut came and sat down beside me. It was during the winter solstice time of the year, and she said, "Play my song." And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. And
You
she
hum
was
it, I'll
trying to
try.
show, yeah. And she was trying to show me, because I was like, how do I play your song? And she was trying to show me and tell me like how to use the notes to express emotion, how to pull in, like there was some connection that I couldn't quite grasp about numerology and the notes and things like that. And so finally one day I was like, oh, I'm going to just Google, how do I Google this? And I Googled it, and there's a scale that uses numerology along with the notes on a scale in music. And so I was like, oh, that's the key. So I took the name of Newt and I took the name of Geb, and I wrote and composed my very first song. And I used the numerology of the notes of Newt and Geb and pulled in their story, which during the time of winter solstice is, you know, the long dark nights of winter, the separation, the feelings of sadness that Newt feels, you know, that she can't hug her beloved anymore.
Mhm.
And so that I wrote my first song, and so now I do that for people. I
Yeah.
play the names of people. And the very first time I did that, I was playing my harp at, I don't know, it was some type of a art gallery, and a lady came and was chatting with me. And I told her, you know, about how I play the names of the Egyptian gods and goddesses. And she, I don't know, I was just like, well, maybe I'll play your name. And I asked for her name and I wrote down her notes, and then I played for her, and I looked up and she was crying. And she said to me, she said, that was so beautiful. She said, I've never thought of myself as beautiful until you played my song.
Oh,
And I
wow.
said, oh, yeah. And I said, well, how old are you, if you don't mind my asking? And she said, I'm 76. And I'm like, that is just so in that moment, I knew, you know, that the music could be very healing and very touching for people if I could play their names. And so I started doing that. And it's been, you know, I've I've done that for you.
I
I did
know.
that, through some of the other things, and it's been really fun to add my music to your projects and to play along with people as they're singing and chanting and doing all the things.
Exactly, because I feel that, when you play the harp, the way you play it, it's not just playing music. There is some emotion in it. So if anybody hasn't heard the clips, go and watch the Pompeii documentary, Egyptian Secrets of Pompeii, and you'll hear Auset's harp quite a lot throughout that documentary, over with Sophia and Nuri and Stephanie. So you'll hear all of that. And then also in the Ancient Egyptian Family Feud documentary, the end credits, that song that I used there from that Auset played, that was actually what Auset sent me for my birthday.
Yeah.
And you combined my name and Nefertari's name and made a song with the numerology. So I was very touched by that. So I had to use it.
Yes, and it was interesting, as I told you, I was trying to blend your name with Ramses because I know how much you love him, and then it just wasn't feeling right. And so I thought I need to put it with Nefertari. And so once I did that, it just softened and it all came together, and it was really fun to play.
It worked really well. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
But it's not just Egypt that fascinates you. I know you're interested in other civilizations. So what other civilizations have you visited and researched?
Um, I don't know which ones you're thinking of.
Well, I know you've been to Pompeii
Yes, I guess Pompeii would be one.
and Rome. So
Pompeii would be one, just because I remember when I was a kid, I think was when they discovered that area, and I was just so like, it's one of those moving things that you kind of like, Ben Trishi and Om Seti. I guess it touched my soul in some way.
yeah,
And so I did on my trip back from Egypt, I stopped through Italy on my way home because I'm like, I'm already halfway there, and made sure that I went to Naples and visit the ancient city. And I even went on a hike up onto the top of Mount Vesuvius, and it was incredible.
are you
And
insane?
I prayed to all of the gods to please not make it blow up again while I was there because I wasn't ready to live that again, I guess. And but the cool thing about being up there was seeing Pompeii in the distance. You could see the city, and it was just incredible, the view of, how far all of that ash spread and that
Right.
sort of thing. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When I visited there every time, I'm like super nervous just walking around Pompeii because I'm just hoping that nothing happens because it's still active.
Yeah. I know there was smoke coming out of it in places, and it was a huge crater, and yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I
It's-
was a little crazy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've sat at the beach in Naples and I've looked at Vesuvius and you can see the smoke rising and sometimes you can smell the sulfur. It's like,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Well, like myself, when you visit ancient sites, I know you're also constantly taking photographs. So, and you're a pretty amazing photographer in your own right. So what tips could you give an average tourist to take better photos?
Yes, this is a great one. So when you're there, I do not like to get up early, but I do like to be up early. So get up early so that you catch that morning light in the temples, and also in the evening. So you can catch those golden hours.
Mhm.
If you're taking something in the height of the sun's, the time of the sun, if you're taking photos of people, make sure you get them in the shaded areas. But when you're there, look for, play off of that sun and look for shadows and things like that. shadows and light. Just look for shadows and light. And definitely, if you're unfamiliar with your camera, digital camera are so great right now. You can take a photo and look at the back and see if you made a mistake or what you need to change so that it aligns with the vision that you have for the photo. So play around with all of the buttons. Get to know your camera a little bit so you can change your settings, and that way you can get some really great silhouettes and things like that. Silhouettes are a lot of fun to do in Egypt, and also wear lots of flowy things so that the wind can catch all of that and add a little bit of magic.
Exactly. I think thinking about the wind is a very good thing. Yeah.
Yes,
Style
and keep
your
your
hair
eyes
so
open.
that it can move in the wind.
Yes.
Yeah. That too.
Yes.
Because I mean, if you're gonna have your hair blowing in your face the whole time, it's not gonna be fun. So
No.
you gotta just, plan.
Yes, you have to plan. Yeah. And also I would say sit and observe. You know, I do wedding photography as well. And a lot of times I'm the second shooter, which I really love, because then I can go get a lot of the behind the scenes things that are happening between the guests or the ring bearer and the grandma,
Or
those kinds of
candid,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, more candid shots. And so try to watch for things and try to anticipate what might happen that you will want to photograph.
Yeah. And what I would think is a very good tip as well is to Google pictures of the sites and see what the most common picture is, and make sure that you don't do that picture.
Yes, I know. I am preparing in that way as I go. I'm looking for different perspectives. I've got the fronts of the temple. So it's like, I don't need to take another picture of the front of this temple. I need to find all of the little nooks and the crannies. I need to find certain scenes or things that I haven't shot before, or a different perspective, walk around in the temple and get different perspectives. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess one more tip would be, whatever you're shooting here, don't forget to turn around and look behind you, because sometimes there's something amazing there as well.
Exactly. So I know you also do amazing portraiture and editorial shoots. Does the love of the ancients overlap with that at any time?
I think just in the artistic expression. I did a series during the pandemic of it was a hashtag celebrate diversity. And so I wanted to pull in people from all genres of life, because early on during the pandemic, we also here in the States, there was a lot of Black Lives Matter, a lot of injustices and things like that. Like everything was just so chaotic. And I just see the beauty in all people. And so I wanted to create something. So, it's interesting in the ancient Egyptian art, they depict different races of people. And so I guess with that project, I was wanting to highlight the beauty of different races of people, and also wearing something that was traditional for their culture.
Yeah.
So that, I think that kind of overlapped a little bit.
Exactly. It's interesting what you say there, because I also think, like they depicted the different races. And I think today I've heard a lot of people say you need to be sort of like colorblind and not see people's race and stuff. I don't think that's the right way to go. I think you should see what race somebody is. And if you want to ask questions about their culture, learn and ask questions. And I think life would be boring if we were all the same. So to learn about other different people, I think that would be a beautiful thing in life, if people could actually just do that.
Yeah, and it takes so much away from other people and their cultures to say, I don't see color.
Yeah.
I don't see your culture. It's like, well, then you don't see me, So yeah, I think it is very important to see the whole person and what makes them up.
Exactly. So tell us about your Patreon program, because Auset and I both have Patreon pages, but Auset does something that is pretty unique and pretty different to most creators on Patreon.
Yeah, so I had been wanting to start something where people could learn more about ancient Egypt and the Neteru and the magic of it, but not necessarily have homework to do, because I have my priestess program where you have to do things, and you have to turn in stuff, and you have to perform different rituals and things, report back and meet up with us as a group. And not everybody has the bandwidth or the desire for that, but they do love aspects of ancient Egypt and the magic and the spirituality. They just, don't have the calling to dedicate parts of their life to that. They just kind of want to do it for fun. So I wanted to create something for that group of people as well that just enjoyed it. So every month we focus on a different Neteru. So there's a PDF about them. And then there's a meditation that I partner with Dee Kennedy. She and I are also going to be doing a tour to Egypt in October that we were talking about earlier.
Is that the one we're going to Sudan?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So that's the one where we're going to follow the path of Sekhmet as the wandering goddess who returns, and go down into the Sudan and see those pyramids as well. But she does so I play the music using the numerology of the Neteru, and I send that to her, and she records a meditation over the music to connect. And then also so that's one tier where we're working with the Neteru and learning about them and how to connect with them. And then another tier is ancient texts. So I found that I was really enjoying, just mostly at night before I go to bed, I just lay in bed and I read the coffin text or the pyramid text or things like that, ancient stories. And I've learned so much from them. And so I wanted to offer that to people as well. So I provide a PDF of the text. I provide an audio. So it's like ancient Egyptian story time where you get to sit back and listen. And then I do a presentation on that also each month. So I had a friend who passed away in August, and I've spent a lot of time at the hospital. So I'm kind of trying to catch up on the presentation portion at the moment. But it's been fun. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed putting that together, and everyone seems to really be enjoying it. And it's nice because it's a program that you can join and not be behind. You just enjoy it when you get the moment and go from there.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, you do readings for people. So when and where did you discover that gift?
So I guess it was, after I started going to the meditation classes, and someone gifted me a tarot deck. And so I just started kind of working on that for myself and learning how to read the cards. And so then I got brave and, started trying to do it for other people. And it all seemed to be working. And so I just started doing it. I started working at a store where I'm the psychic of the day, and people can come in and have readings. I also offer them on my website. People can sign up. And
It sounds like soup of the day.
Yes. Yes, I am the flavor of the day. That's great. And all natural ingredients, of course. And so I really loved creating my own oracle deck, and with Normandy and using that. So it's been really fun. And for a while, also a part of doing readings sometimes is mediumship, which is speaking or delivering messages from people who have passed away. And that part was like terrifying to me. And I blocked it out for a very long time. And then finally, people kept coming to me, and like invariably they would want, like, that would be their specific question. So when someone is sitting in front of you and they're asking you a specific question to connect with someone who's passed away, it's very hard to say no, because you want to help them and you want to alleviate their pain. You want to be able to answer their questions. And so inside I was going, uh-oh. And then I would take that little uh-oh and I would say, you go sit in the corner, let me do my work. And so I just started, trying to tap in and figure out how mediumship was going to work for me. And so I was really sometimes I can connect really well. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult or challenging. But it's always been very helpful for the people. So I'm very grateful for being able to do that.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, like when you do readings and you have to deliver some pretty bad news, is that emotionally draining on you?
Readings in general are emotionally draining, because and it's interesting because like over the past 6 years, I've had some really personal traumatic things that have been very emotionally hard. And I've been very distraught. And then it's like, oh, I have to go do readings today. I have to pull myself together. And so, I have to take all of whatever pain and tears that I have for myself and set them aside and focus on my job. And even when that's exhausting. But even when I'm not, in a emotional state, I'm just living life or whatever, I still take everything that I have going on in my life, good, bad, indifferent, and set it aside so I can do my work, because I have to get kind of out of my body. I
Yeah.
have to get, and I don't look at the people. Like when I do my readings, I lay out the cards, I look at the cards, and I just say all the things I need to say. I let the cards tell me the story of what I need to tell them about their life before I ever look up to them, because I don't want to see their reaction and humanly play off of that. I don't want my consciousness to come into play and be like, oh, there's a tear, I need to really hit on this. I
Yeah.
just want to stay in that place of giving them the
You have to
messages that they
focus.
need. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to stay very neutral, stay in that space of ma'at and balance. And so it's very tiring. The days where I do like 3 hours at a time, I a little bit out of it for a while, and I just want to come home, be outside, eat, watch TV, something that gets me back into my body.
Exactly, exactly. It's that like emotional unwind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So tell me, which Egyptologists do you look up to?
Oh, I was excited about this question, because I years ago I don't know, the goddess Mut was coming to me, and I was very fascinated with her. And so I started looking up things about her and learning more, and I came across an Egyptologist from the late 1800s, and her name was Margaret Benson. And she actually wrote a book about her excavations at the Temple of Mut there in Luxor. And she was a woman who was from England, and back in the late 1800s, Egypt was a colony of England, and so people from England, that was where they went and vacationed. And so her family went there to vacation, and as she describes it in her book, there was a donkey boy, so a little boy that rode donkeys around town, and said, hey, I have this beautiful temple to show you, come see, come see. And so she went with him on this long donkey ride out to the Temple of Mut, and it touched her so much that she wanted to apply to the ministry to excavate there. And this was a woman who was very well educated. She was very into religion. She was very religious, very philosophical, very learned person, but she didn't know anything really about Egypt. And she was actually the first woman to be granted an excavation license in ancient Egypt. And she went and did three digs there, 3 sessions, and she wrote a book. And many of the statues of Sekhmet that you see in museums like at the Met, and all around the world, were found and discovered by Margaret Benson in her 3. And there's a statue of Senenmut, the scribe, that she found. And so she's someone that as a pioneer, she's very inspiring to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think people need to give her a little bit more credit.
Yes, and something that I would love one day. So I like, somehow things that I say get manifested, and so I'm going to say this out loud and make it real. Is that I think that there should be a movie made about Margaret Benson, and I think that Nicole Kidman should play the part.
Ah,
So we need to figure out how to make that happen one day, because she's fascinating. She's very educated, and she wrote, we have a book that her brother put together of like all of her letters. And she was plagued with pleurisy. So she oftentimes was not well enough to actually be out on the digs. And so she had her partner, Margaret Gorley, who was out there kind of helping her with all of that. So I think there's enough tragedy also happening in her life that would make that a really interesting story.
yeah, yeah. Well, if only you knew someone who made movies.
I know. I know. I
Exactly.
know.
Exactly. Well, Auset, I have my final question for you before we do a little quick fire round and then get some questions from the viewers.
Okay.
So I know what you think is your most spiritual place in Egypt, but in general, where do you think is the most spiritual place in Egypt?
It's interesting. I will say, I'm going to say inside the Great Pyramid. I'm going to back out of that. I'm going to say that's one, and then also inside the Pyramid of Unas. I think that those are two really important power places. The Pyramid of Unas because of the text and just the energy there, and then the Great Pyramid, the energy in there is very palpable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone is going to Egypt, let us know what you felt inside the Great Pyramid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because that was my first couple of times in there. I actually got nauseated from the energy in there. And I'm not claustrophobic, so I know it wasn't that. But there was this feeling of, just being pulled apart. It's like it takes your body and it particulates it in some way. And the purpose of the pyramids was this transfiguration of the pharaoh, whether it was through death into the new life and the afterlife, or if they were used for shamanic journeys and that type of thing. But it's a place of transformation and transfiguration. So when I was in there, like, I could physically feel that, and it was nauseating. It was very, very real. So I had to go over to the doorway, kind of let the air from the, what do you call it, the grand tunnel,
stair.
yeah, the stairway. I had to go stand by that so that I could just kind of like pull myself together from the energy.
Well, a lot of you know I have a phobia of going inside pyramids. So when I was there, another Egyptologist was with me and she dragged me into the Great Pyramid because I was like, I'm not going inside. With my luck, that thing's going to fall down on me, So she dragged me in and I was like hyperventilating, and I definitely felt something.
Yeah.
Well, Auset, this has been so fun and so fascinating getting to know you better.
Thank you.
So before we hand over to the audience for some questions, are you ready for your quick fire round?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Favorite artifact?
My favorite artifact, ancient harps.
What is your biggest fear?
Drowning.
Favorite pharaoh?
Seti the First.
Most interesting symbol or glyph?
Ooh, my favorite one is Heka.
Heka. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And a place that you still wish to visit?
Morocco.
Ah.
Yeah, I want to go see the Sahara Desert out there and ride camels or horses.
Exactly. I think that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to now hand over to the audience to ask their questions. So anybody who unmutes first gets to go. So we have quite a few people on. Go.
Auset, seeing as though everyone's a bit slow, I'm going to ask you about, you were talking about energy when you were in the Great Pyramid. How did you feel? Did you actually go into Tutankhamun's tomb? Did you see his body there, his mummy there? And did you pick up on anything?
Yes, I was inside. I've been inside tombs, and it's really fascinating. It's interesting for me. A lot of times I turn off my ability to feel energy. But a lot of times when you're in places like inside the pyramids or in Egypt in general, it's hard to keep that completely shut down. So I feel like that the energy within, I feel like that there's life inside of them within the tombs. I think there's a lot of magic. One of my favorite symbols is the Heka symbol, which is the arms. It's the Ka. It holds the Ka, so it's the spirit. So I feel like that all of the things that are happening on the walls and all of the offerings that were left and the way that people remember the person who is deceased, I think that really does feed their spirit. And so I would say I definitely feel that presence there.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
I felt very uncomfortable in Tut's tomb. I'm not sure why. I just had this uneasy feeling. So usually I don't feel anything inside a tomb, but inside Tut's tomb, it was like, I want to get in and get out.
He was in there. He was still there.
Still there. It's
Yeah.
like, you shouldn't be in here. Get out.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Marissa.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay, good. I've been listening the whole time. So interesting because I look at things so differently, and Auset and I have had this discussion. Why do you think? So I look at things, practically, art historical. So we know the great. You said you were nauseous at the Great Pyramid, right? It was a great. So the Great Pyramid was a tomb for one person, right? Just one. But obviously, thousands of people were, built this structure. So you felt so much energy when you were in there, but different than other places you visited. So why do you think it is, if it was, it was the death of one person, but you felt so much energy for so many people? That's what I'm interested about. And then Curtis, just, he didn't feel comfortable. It's interesting, Curtis, you don't feel comfortable, I think, in tombs, period. From what I'm listening, any tomb. Maybe because it's small. It's just not because of spiritual or magical or Heka, just because it's a small space. It could be a practical reason. So what do you think it's about?
So I think it's beyond, so the feelings within the Great Pyramid, I think it goes beyond the pharaoh that, was supposed to be there, or who it was built for. I feel like it has more to do with the structure. The Great Pyramid, it holds its structure and its shape in a way that, like, if you go to the Pyramid of Unas, it doesn't. It's very crumbled and it just looks like a pile of rocks, but the Great Pyramid, it still holds that pyramidic structure. And the way that the bioacoustics are and the energy flows through there,
that's also the energy, I said, possibly also the energy of all the thousands of people that built the pyramid is like embedded in the pyramid itself.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, but I think for me, it's the shape that the Great Pyramid still holds, and the energy that, because there have been photos taken or images taken of the Giza Plateau and the way that, the energy comes up from the earth, and how it's either vertical or horizontal or something, and how it changes at the Great Pyramids. So that's, I think, that the energy more that I was feeling there than anything.
What about the step pyramid? Like, did you feel anything at Saqqara? And now
I was not able to go into the step pyramid wasn't open yet. So they were still, the scaffolding and things were all still on it.
Could you feel, would you be able to, do you think you'd be able to feel the energy whatever this feeling that you feel, do you have to be inside the structure, or is it like, is there like a barrier or border?
To be inside the structure, it will feel different from being outside the structure, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's
I want to add something. I was in Egypt in 2009, and
Okay.
so I went with the retreat with John Davis. So we went there and November 11, 2000. So at 11, we were inside the king's chamber. The hard part is to walk into the pyramid because it's very stretched way. But when you go into the king's chamber, there is a big room, and there is where they had the sarcophagus where they put him and everything. We have a big ceremony in there. Most people were Coptic, so we sing and we pray, and we also exchange little stones, and then we have hands and everything. And then we walk. I didn't make it all the way to the king's chamber because it's even more difficult to get into the king's chamber. But so it was not that it's a lot of other spirits or anything like that. The apprehension could be getting into the such a small place walking. The walking, the steps are very narrow. We have to be one behind the other one, and to the king's chamber is down. So you're going downhill very, very slow. We almost like pushing each other to be able to get there until we get into the big chamber. The king's chamber is huge. So you're going into the queen's chamber. You actually have to get into a hall, and you get actually through your stomach to get into that room. We didn't have any ceremony there. So but I agree with Auset that the emotion and all the feeling that you have with getting inside, and also I agree that the feeling is different from being from the inside, that just looking the pyramid from the outside. So the other ones, we saw the other pyramids, that was the different feeling. So but the great pyramid, that's where you have all this, all the feelings, all the emotion, all the things going on, and then you have all the, we have in a group, so we had a ceremony and all that. It was really, to me, every single person that was in that group have different feelings and different temples. Some of us, some of us were in the Horus temple, and different thing. Abydos, everybody have a different day that cry and feel. John Davis told us through numerology that we all have been there in the past life. So we were looking to be there. We feel that we wanted to be there. So that was a great experience for me to be there.
Yeah, and I think it's very different for everyone because, like Marissa said, they're all coming from a different background. I think that she would feel things in a different way, but it wouldn't detract from the magical way that it feels to her.
And
and I have a question about what's in front. So when I teach about the Giza Plateau, I always say, if you're going to Egypt, go to the mastaba fields, because that, to me, when Curtis asked Auset, would ask you, what's your, I can't remember exactly the question, how it was phrased, what your favorite spot. It's interesting because the Giza the Great Pyramids, there's too many people in there. That never did anything for me. But when you go to the mastabas and nobody's there, and it's like you can literally close your eyes and pretend that you're a worker and you just finished the last glyph, and that's like a time capsule. No one ever talks about the mastabas in front of the pyramids. Everybody just talks about the pyramids. And
it's so interesting, Marissa, how you said the Great Pyramids and the pyramids of Giza did nothing for you. Same for me. People always say, what's the place you need to go in Egypt? I can't wait to see the pyramids. I'm like, Well, that's great, but there's a lot more to see than pyramids and a lot more interesting things than pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know,
I knew
Marissa,
it.
your question, Marissa, about feeling uneasy in tombs. Tut's tomb was one of the only tombs I felt uneasy in. Seti's tomb, I was very lucky to get in, and I felt very calm, and I just wanted to talk so softly.
Wow,
With
that's
Kari's
good.
tomb, all of you guys have seen me like bawling my eyes out. You know, it's an emotional visit to Nefertari's tomb, but Tut's tomb was a bit different for me. I don't know
But do
why.
you think it's just because you're, again, I'm like that person who is the debunker. Literally, one of my nicknames is Marissa the Mythbuster. Like, do you think it's just because we've just been indoctrinated so much with the two syllables, King Tut, and then you're finally there, and it's just a structure with 8 walls, and it's just, you know, he wasn't important at the time, so maybe that's why you didn't feel anything.
Well, I felt something for sure. I felt very uneasy because his body is right there, and it's like he's saying, you shouldn't be in my tomb.
You shouldn't be here. This is not a tourist attraction. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
by
that's
having him in the tomb, basically looking at you,
right.
that is
Get
the
out.
uneasy.
Right.
That is the uneasy
Well,
feeling.
now he's been taken out, so I can't tell any of us that anymore.
No,
But we
no,
are saying his
he's
name,
still
so he's
there.
alive.
Is he still there? Thank goodness.
Yeah, it's just the gold sarcophagus that was taken out.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
not meant
different
to
people, yeah,
tourist
different
attraction.
people have, different people have different experience. You know, you might
Yeah.
have been one, and you walk in and say, "So what? That's it." You turn around and leave, and then so it's another day, and the next day you a different temple, and actually you feel the calling. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I said
Went to
different
the
people
Atari
in that
school.
group.
Sorry.
Yeah, different people in that group. We said, you know,
Did you do the lizard lights? I haven't even looked. Huh? Yeah, downstairs too.
I see Nuri has raised her hand. Nuri, you have a question?
Yes, I do. It's not very much of a question as much as it's something I need to understand. Going back to the idea when you said that you were called by ISIS and then you've got your name Auset and all this story that touched my heart in a way, and I've got all the goosebumps and everything. So my question is, in very simple words, is have you ever felt that happened when you were aware, how old were you when that happened?
It was like 2000. I was maybe 40 something.
Okay, 40 something. So you were an adult, you're aware that happened like recently. Did you ever had like some sort of a snapshots of your life when you were a child, like your childhood memory, and this kind of memory was blocked and it came to the right time in 2016, but maybe ISIS spoke to you at that time when you were a child and you started remembering those kind of snapshots from your childhood memory recently after the 2016 thing that happened?
Yeah. One of my earliest memories, I was a little girl sitting in my bed in my room. I was probably like 6 years old. And I just had this knowing that everything that was happening in my life, or that was going to happen in my life, I had already planned it out. Like I didn't have to worry about anything, and that I had chosen my parents, I had chosen where I lived, I chose that I loved horses, and that I lived in this house and I was in this bedroom. And that was kind of a memory that I would say kind of shut down a little bit for most of my life, even though I had in the back of my subconscious that, everything is happening as it should be. But then, when I started to really open up to the spiritual parts of ancient Egypt, then it all really started to kind of open back up. And I was able to kind of even understand the challenge. It's not fun to have the challenges that I have in my life, but it makes it easier to understand, that, okay, I just have to settle into it and surrender. I don't know if that makes sense or answers your question.
So you've discovered that you've had a memory when you were a child with Isis? Oh, interesting. Thank you. That answers my question. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah. I see Sophia has unmuted. Do you have a question, Sophia?
Hi. First of all, I was going to say, I think you play the harp so beautifully. I mean, honestly, when I listen to it, it makes me feel emotional. It's so beautiful the way you play. How long did it take you to learn?
Well, to be fair, I played piano as a kid, and I started taking piano lessons when I was, I think, around 8 years old. And I played written music for a very long time. And then when I was about 15 years old, I started taking lessons from a guy. He came to our church and he lit up the piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. And it was incredible. And I took lessons from him to learn how to play by ear. And so then when I got my harp, I didn't get my harp till I was like 39. And it had been about 20 years since I'd really played the piano. So I had to take, I took about 6 lessons on the harp to learn fingering and how to tune it and that sort of thing and play. And then after a year or so of that is when Newt came, and then I just started playing. I started improvising more, and that's my favorite thing to do, is just to sit and not play written music. I just want to play.
From the heart, yeah.
Yeah, from the heart.
Well, that's why it's so beautiful, because you're playing from the heart.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So.
And one of my favorite question askers, Jill.
Yeah, it's not really so much a question, but I'm so pleased that you mentioned Margaret Benson. I've been following her life. It's a very interesting family. I mean, her father became the Archbishop of Canterbury. One of her brothers wrote the words to Elgar's, was it Land of Hope and Glory? One of the brothers who was out there with her in Egypt, he drew the plan of the Temple of Mut, and it was extremely accurate. So Curtis, if you want to make a film, I would say it would be very interesting.
I think so, because that is a story I think a lot of people don't know about. And we've had like 50 Howard Carter movies made. It's time for someone else to get the spotlight.
Yeah, and I'm so glad, Jill, that
Does
you've
anybody know Nicole Kidman?
I know, we need to know Nicole.
Sorry, I said, does anybody know Nicole Kidman?
No, I don't. I follow her on Instagram, so I'm almost there, but
Well, maybe
I remember her.
do a
She did that
movie.
movie about being, I think it's called Queen of Africa or something like that. She was, out there riding camels in Australia. And when I saw her in that, I was like, she would really be a wonderful person to play Margaret. So I don't know. It's just something that I've had in my mind that I know that one day will happen. It's just it's fun to have that to look forward to, I guess.
Maybe she'll watch this interview.
You would be surprised, Sophia. You would be surprised at who watches these interviews. Sometimes the strangest person that you never think would watch it.
Yeah, but Jill, I'm so happy to hear that you also know of Margaret Benson. And I don't have Chris's book about the Egyptologists, through time, but I don't think that he included her.
She's not in it, no.
So I was very disappointed in that. So I think she does definitely need some of her own limelight.
Maybe he should do one just on female Egyptologists.
Yeah,
exactly.
And really, I mean, obviously, one or two mentions that I was there, but yes, it was really focused on the male side of the.
Do you have her book, Jill, that she wrote, The Temple of Mut?
Yes, the Temple of Mut in Asher. Yes.
I
It's
love
quite
it.
if anybody wants to read it, you can find it online. The Temple of Mut in Asher.
Yes.
Mut in Asher. I will check it out. But I have an idea for another movie that I want Nuri to play Nefertiti in a movie.
Yay!
Is this the one that we had talked about?
Yep, we need
Yep.
Nuri to be Nefertiti in a movie.
I just
Yes.
need to straighten my hair, right? That's all I need to do.
You need to shave it.
Actor. Oh my god!
No, you can't shave that beautiful.
No, you'll put on a you do the thing
I'll
that's
put. Okay, I'll go for putting that thing on.
No, but we'll tie it up.
Yeah.
We'll tie it up and your hair will help to keep the crown on.
Yeah.
See? There's always something good comes out of this hair. I'm telling you.
I love that hair.
yes. Well, you know, the hair is very magical because when you read in the coffin text, it talks about, you know, being knitted to the hair of Isis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I see Marissa raised her hand again. So that means Marissa has another question.
What it was. I can't remember. It was either about Nefertari's tomb or what were you guys just talking about? I think it was
Margaret Benson, Nefertiti,
Yeah.
Root.
Maybe you wanted to know who's going to play Ramses in the movie with Nefertari.
me. I'll do it. But why Nefertari's tomb? Those colors. I'm sorry. I always go back to like the walls, the chemicals, the paintings. Like I wish I could be more like. I'm learning. I'm trying. Right. Like I'm opening my mind to be more like Auset. It's helpful, but you know, you are who you are. I guess I want to know about like the somebody went to Nefertari and said the wall, you know, the colors, like what is it like when you're in there? I only see the photos. I teach about them.
You have
But you
to
haven't
go.
been. You haven't been into
Yeah.
Nefertari's.
I've been to Nefertari's tomb, but I used so many photos of the glyphs when I teach about glyphs, but it's just like simple, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in that space and having that. Cheryl, you
It's
said it
out
was
of this world.
weird.
Sorry.
Nefertari's tomb is just, you know, the colors are so vivid.
They're not restored. Where are they?
No, there are some parts, but you can see which parts are restored. So, you know, what they did was for especially like hair. So if a piece of the wall had fallen off, because, you know, Nefertari's tomb is built on top of a salt flat. So all the salt came through into the plaster because her tomb is not carved, it's plaster on the walls. So a lot of the plaster, different techniques. They did the same for Ramses II's tomb, which is why it's basically completely destroyed now with all the earthquakes. So Nefertari's tomb survived a bit better than Ramses' tomb. But when all the plaster was falling off, when they went in, the Getty Institute, to now restore it, what they did was it's an Italian technique, and they would go in and they would use 3 different colors and do thin lines. So especially on the hair, where the hair fell off. So they put it back on the wall. And if there's a whole chunk of hair missing, that doesn't look very pretty. So they went in and they repaired that. But if you stand like a few centimeters from the wall, you can see, okay, that section is restored. But the rest, the rest of it is actually original colors.
It's amazing. Like her playing Senate, the little frame of her playing the game Senate.
It's perfect. Yeah.
With that weird crown she's wearing, that's like a flat, like altar of some sort. I've never seen. I don't even know.
Well, what she's wearing is actually the crown of Mut in that, but sometimes they take the feathers. They take the feathers out because it doesn't fit.
That was her tomb, but then Abu Simbel, where there's the Abu Simbel Ramses II and the small temple, that was just a temple in honor of her. That's by her husband. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I've never. Have you guys been to Abu Simbel, and how do you feel? Like, do you feel anything when you walk into either the small temple or Abu Simbel, Auset?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
how do you? I remember asking you, Auset, I was like, help me right before I gave like a quick, I don't know what I was doing a couple months ago. Like, and why do you think it's specific places? Like, I always feel that people feel certain things because you've heard these people's names for so long, and then you automatically are going to feel something. But who's this? Like, why did I feel something? Some random unknown noble's tomb, mastaba. It's just because it was beautiful.
Right. There was probably something about, just your own, where you come from, like your area of interest and your interest in the history, that made it exciting for you, or that it touched you, because it was a part of history that doesn't have a lot of light shed on it, but it's like a little niche, and you like those little niches. And so I feel like that's why that was exciting to you. It's like why, I might not be touched by a piece of pottery, but if someone, is a potter, or they study that type of a thing, to see an ancient piece of pottery is going to really touch them and move them in some way. So I think it just maybe comes from your background and what.
And it's amazing that you're open to that. So how did you feel when you went to see Abu Simbel in the small temple?
I have not yet been to Abu Simbel, so Curtis has. He can probably answer that question.
Abu Simbel is absolutely amazing. First of all, you're hit by the size of the huge statues of Ramses outside. But when you go in, it's a very magical, very spiritual place, because you're going inside, and then there's the chapels that go off on the side. And those are what is really special, because you see, the religious acts happening in those side chapels, and you sort of feel connected to that part of history. Then you go into Nefertari's temple, and inside her temple, it's just this light, airy, loving feeling inside her temple. It's very weird to explain. It's just a light feeling. I see Sophia's nodding. I'm sure she agrees.
Yeah,
isn't it dark? And
I absolutely.
I don't understand.
That's how I felt.
Really?
I don't
Sophia?
know. Also, would that be part of the architecture and the way that they structure that? The Ramsey part of that is more masculine, and maybe the lines or the way that he has constructed for the light to enter her temple,
Right,
would definitely
turning chaos, light into
give it a
dark
different
into light.
feeling.
For sure.
Yeah.
But do you think like Sophia, Nuri, and Auset, like me, who's the skeptic or whatever the word is I'm looking for, art historian, I mean, am I going to feel anything one day when I go into Ramses? I'll be impressed by the architecture, but
I think that you'll feel something, but also it's important to remember not to gauge the quality of what you experience and measure that against someone else's oranges when you have apples. So you are going to have an experience that is uniquely yours, and it's going to be uniquely special to you in some way, whether it is the architecture or the size or the colors, or how did they paint these things, or how did they reconstruct this, from where it was before, and the massive undertaking. You're going to have experiences, but I would just encourage you not to try to have an experience that isn't true to you.
Authentic.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be with me anyway when that happens, right? Everybody here, we're all going to go together, right?
Yes, and I'm going to be
All of
so
us?
happy when you experience everything in your own unique way. That's what it's all about.
You'll be by
It's
my
not-
side.
Yeah, it's not to have you feel a certain thing or become, more spiritual or whatever. It's for you to just experience it in your own way.
I would love to be more spiritual. I'm so jealous of you guys. I don't walk into places like this is magical. No, it's a structure. This is where it was built. Here's where the architects did this and that. Like, I can't get past that.
I think I'm a little bit like you because I'm so scientific in my thinking, and I wish I was more spiritual, but I still feel emotional because I love the history and I have so much passion. And then I imagine people, and I think that's what gets me emotional. But I'd love to have a spiritual experience, but I have to be honest that I've not. But It'd be interesting to. I'll have to come on a tour.
You have
Well,
I
put it
think
together,
sometimes, I
Sophia.
think that, you know,
Yeah.
Sophia, when you talk about, you know, hearing me play my music, like how it touches you, you know, to me, that's a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
true.
yeah.
You know, like there are some places that I visit and I just have no connection. I don't feel anything. So maybe you just haven't visited the right place that hasn't touched you just yet.
Mhm.
You know, I was having a conversation with an Egyptologist once, and this person was saying, you know, oh, but Ramses II was a womanizer, and he was this, and he was this, and he was this, and he was this. And she just listed all the bad things he did. I was like, where are you getting this from? She's like, oh no, from all the books. And I'm like, yeah, you can read the books, but remember, these are real people. So you have to see it from a psychological point of view, where you try and analyze why they might have done that, what caused them to do that. Then you look at what happened in Amarna, and then you can understand why Ramses wanted to be like, screw that, I'm going to fix things, and I'm going to show everyone I was the one who did it. So
Mhm.
you have to see
also-
things from the human side as well.
And within that human side is the culture, you know,
Yeah.
talking about him as a womanizer. It's like, well, that was their culture. Like today, you know, we're like, you need one person with another one person, and that makes the two people.
Mhm.
You know, it was so different. Their culture was so different back then. So we can't really, it's not fair to judge.
Like a normal married couple in ancient Egypt, they were monogamous, and we know that there was a very big stigma if you slept with someone else's wife or husband or whatever, you would get divorced and it would be the end of it. But for the pharaoh, he had a role to play, and there's a reason why there was all of those wives. So,
Right.
you know, people sometimes don't look at the entire picture. So
But it's the same in every culture. It's
Mhm.
literally what you just said. You could say for ancient China, ancient India.
Yeah.
You can say for England, all the British monarchy. Like nothing comes from nothing. I say that in all my lectures.
Yeah.
You know, it's just men who want to have a lot of sex with different women is what it comes down to. It is. I'm not being funny. They're in power.
Maybe
That's
he did.
true.
And they can.
Maybe he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. When you break it down, that's what it is. How many children can I have? How many women can I choose from it tonight? And that's where
Right.
harems come from.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a word for harem either, so which is interesting.
Right. That's interesting in Egypt and other places, right? But it's
Yeah.
all the same. It's every culture. There's a man in power who gets to do what he wants with whoever he wants.
Well, and you know, along
But I
those
dare
lines,
you to find me, show
Kara-
me a culture that's not like that.
yeah, and it's interesting to look at the work of Kara Cooney on all of those types of things.
Yeah.
I enjoy her perspective on all of that. It pulls in
Yeah.
something different. So
Do you guys all
Oh my God.
follow her on Facebook? And do you
Yeah.
look at what she says and what the
yeah,
people
she
say?
started a new podcast, and I've
Yes.
enjoyed listening to that. So yeah.
I spoke
gotta
to
get-
Kara this week, so
Okay,
Really?
good.
yeah,
Good.
we're working on something, you know, with Sophia and Nuri and
I was just it's
Bob
amazing.
Bianchi, and a couple others. So we're
Oh my
working.
God, nice work.
So
Well, Sophia and Uri, what do you guys think about Kara? Auset and I agree. And Cheryl, do you guys find her controversial, or she just says she calls it like it is, or in between?
I think she's brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
can't hear
love
anything.
Cara.
You know, she does
Yeah.
not. She doesn't take shit.
Audible. Oh, sorry, Curtis.
She doesn't take what?
If anybody listens to Audible, she has a podcast on there, which some lectures, which are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're an Audible member, you can listen to it for free.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What I love about Kara is she doesn't care about if she says something, that's her belief. And I love that she doesn't let other people, you know, upset her or get in her way of her belief. I love that she, if she wants to say something, she'll say it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love her comments to other people. Her favorite word is patriarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, One of mine as well.
I remember an
I
Egyptologist.
have to say, like this. Go ahead, Chris.
I remember an Egyptologist and I were having an argument on one of the Facebook groups, and Kara kept reacting to each argument that we were having, and she only reacted with a ha on each one. I kept thinking, what the hell, Kara? You need to respond. So I sent her a message. I'm like, what is your standing on this? And she goes, I just think it's hilarious. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I must say this end discussion has been from one end to the other so good.
Yes,
I think we
this has
needed
been,
this. This has been wonderful.
yeah, this has been such an interesting
Can I make it
chapter.
a little punctuation? So when I just said how it's all about, just not to sound like I'm Kara Cooney, but it's about men who just want to have sex with a lot of women, which is really when you break down and peel away the layers. The fact that you guys all giggled, it tells me that you guys just, even us, this group, this very educated, smart group, can't even admit that. When I give tours at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and I show Edward Degas, with all the ballerinas, and I explain what is actually going on, people are clutching their pearls, because it's all these, if you look at a Degas painting, there's always somebody fight me on it, argue with me, show me proof that this isn't how it was. Nobody has anything to say.
I think about this historically. So yeah, Sophia, please.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Sophia,
that is the case, and I think it just makes people feel.
And even if we try to fix that by the morals and the slogans everywhere all over the world, that's the nature of a man. Need to put strict laws and rules to control what's going on and what men do. I'm not trying to just put all the blame on men all the way, but just I guess people, those politicians, the ones who are in charge of countries and things like that, they need to put very solid rules to protect ladies and women and the youngsters and the teenagers, and also part of the education will help big time. I mean, all of us are very well educated. The group of people here in this Zoom meeting, where you in among us the community, they can do whatever. And at the end of the day, we're both human. We can do, a sin is a sin, a mistake is a mistake. You cannot say to a woman, you've done a mistake, and if a man does that, he's a good man. No, that's how most of the men all over the world are raised. It doesn't matter what is the culture. It does not matter what is the country. It does not matter what is your religion. Most of men are brought like that. I put the blame on the mothers, big time, for sure. I'm sorry if there is any mother here, but I'm sure that you are all great. But there is a huge part of it based on the mother, because she wants to see the son as a man and strong.
She doesn't know any different.
Whatever.
The mother doesn't know any different, though. She doesn't know any different, because that's how she was raised, unless somebody teaches her.
How she was. Yeah, that's how she was raised. So,
and that's how it was in ancient times. To bring it back to ancient times.
You know what? No, I would disagree with you, Marissa, because back in the day, in the time of the ancient Egyptians, there was code of ethics. There were lots and lots of just the Ma'at rules that respected women hugely and big time. And I would say also the three monotheistic religion, they show how women are very, very important and how they should be treated in the right way. The only part that is completely wrong nowadays that is happening is how people interpret the religion, whether it's an ancient Egyptian or whatever ancient religion, or even the monotheistic religions, how they try to manipulate the thoughts and the mind of the people who do not go and read, and they depend on listening. A lot of people, let's take the Islam as an example, okay? And a lot of people, they don't know anything about the Islam. And what you know about the Islam is basically what you hear from another person. But if you go and dig deeper and see what the religion is, you will see like a huge different idea from what you see on the news and things like that. I'm not trying to just shade some light or spot the light on the Islam. I'm talking as a general thing. Yeah, and that goes back. Yeah, and that goes back in the time of the ancient Egyptians. Like from what I have read and from my understanding, the time of the ancient Egyptians, they respected women really, really big time. And anything like that was a huge sin. For the kings and the pharaohs, if I'm going to call them pharaohs, for the kings and the pharaohs, they've had a different kind of path, an idea to have more than one wife. That's a political thing, 100%. It's not because they love doing that. Yes, men in general, they love doing that. But part of it is just to protect what they have, to protect their throne, to be able to have children, to be able to have an extended family, a big family. And that was very, very obvious during the time of the Ramessides and the Ramesside period, and especially Ramses II. So part of it is 100% the nature of the man. And nowadays it became even worse because just we're talking about like just only slogans, but nothing on the solid ground is happening, I guess. So
right.
After all these
you
pharaohs
talk about, you know,
fine.
having children and having more children and protecting the throne and that type of thing. So, you know, childbirth, even today, is a very dangerous thing, you know, so there are many times, you know, infant mortality and all of those sorts of things, you know, as it was hard to have a family. So, you know, the more, I guess, that you gave yourself an opportunity to keep the throne and keep your dynasty going, you would definitely want to take that. So
exactly. Well, you know, I'm sure that we could.
Sorry if I got too excited.
No.
I think, you know, it's a very passionate subject, isn't it?
I saw the Nuri, I saw the inner Zahi Hawass coming out of you.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Do you know what? I do agree with Nuri that the ancient Egyptians, you know, women were treated with a lot more respect, and they were so enlightened for that time.
I agree.
So, you know, women had a lot more rights. So the patriarchy, I think, has always existed, and it still does. And it's a major problem that we need to tackle. I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
all
it's
so
one of
much
my
for this
favorite
discussion.
words too.
Yeah.
It is something very interesting. You know, if you look at the ancient Greeks, how they treated the woman wasn't as good as in Egypt. Then you go to Rome and it's like they treated the woman like really bad. So, you know, it's interesting.
Look at a civilization and how they treat their women, a society, how advanced they are, is how they treat their women and their animals. And Egypt is up there compared to other places. Exactly.
Well, everyone, this has been such an interesting chat. I think anyone who watches this is going to come away feeling a little bit more enlightened.
Yeah, so many perspectives. I love it.
Yeah, we should do a panel and just discuss all of this stuff one day.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah,
but you're skeptic.
Just a general chat.
Nuri's in the middle. Sophia is like a little bit more like me. Auset's on one side. We've got Jill in the middle. Yeah, this is a good group. I don't know. I'm just making it up.
No, but I think we should definitely do that. So yeah.
I'm going to ask you guys all to be part of my kids' career day. We need an actual archaeologist. One of you is going to be on there, aren't you?
Great.
Well, everyone, I hope you all have a great evening and a great day further, wherever you are in the world. I'm sorry, T. Yeah. So anyway, it has been so much fun, and keep checking back for new interviews. John Ward and Maria Nilsson next week, Friday. So
please put that on. Keep posting that on Facebook because that's where I get all my reminders.
Thank
you.
And that was
Facebook
great.
reminders.
I will. And then the week after that, I'm interviewing Kaylee from History with Kaylee. So that will also be very interesting. So yeah.
Auset, thank you for your time. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad
thank you.
that
Was
here.
really great.
Thank you, Auset, and
Thank you.
thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Can't wait
Great
to see you guys
you.
all.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye. Thank you.
Curtis, just before you close it
Yes.
down, I've put a link on there to Margaret Benson's book. It's in the chat.
Ah, great. I will copy that right away. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Jill.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.